Know what your responsibilities are, and if you need to, consult a tax professional. don't just rely on us for
don't just go to Grok either or Chat GPT and think that they're going to give you the absolute correct information either on something as important as this. It's not worth it.
You're listening to Behind the Lines, a podcast presented by In Play Live and powered by Pinnacle, the #1 sportsbook where winners play and never get limited. Go to pinnacle.com/InPlayLive to sign up and get in the game.
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, powered by Pinnacle, purifying the sports betting industry. I'm Shane. Pace is here, and we've got Ghosty with us. On today's show, betting ads going down, but number of bettors going up. NBA players have their say and will grind the NHL playoffs. All right, guys, lots to talk about here on the show today. I want to start off, Pace, with a topic that I think is really kind of near and dear to us because we really began this podcast with this topic, which was about sports books and the advertising that takes place. It was sort of one of our first episodes. We looked at all of the various ads and how they were showing up on broadcasts and that kind of thing. And, I think people out there still complain a lot about the sports betting ads, but guess what? They're actually going away. Not going away, but there's fewer of them. Who would have thought? So this one coming to us from ESPN, they put out this article just yesterday, I think it was, showing that the overall number of TV ads for traditional sports books has actually dropped 17% year over year in 2024 and down 44% since their peak in 2021. So just to give you a bit of a sense here, they spent $666 million in 2024, which is flat for spending on advertising. So costs of commercials are going up. Their spending stayed the same. So you're seeing less ads, generally speaking. But just to give you an idea for the NFL, year over year, a decrease of 3.3%. In the number of ads you're seeing. And this article specifically looks at it and compares sports betting ads to alcohol ads, which is sort of the other big one that you tend to see when you're watching sports. And they found that according to, this is Nielsen, which tracks all of this stuff, there were more ads for alcohol than sports betting during the NBA, WNBA, and baseball, MLB, in 2024. But betting ads were more frequent for the NFL, NHL, golf, NASCAR, and soccer. NHL games, that had the highest percentage of gambling-related ads for the major sports leagues at 4.2%. So first, are we at all surprised that perhaps the number of ads is actually going down?
No.
Not at all.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not. You guys expected this? You expected to see ads go down? I thought maybe they would go up before they started to come down.
It's hard to go up, when you're at the top, right? Like that's kind of why I would say I'm mostly not surprised. Is it really, like, we didn't do that episode as like, oh, the big bad sports books, how dare they advertise? We were being bombarded. It was pretty nuts.
It was.
So I don't think you can really go up from that. That would be just my comment to that. I would say, yeah.
I mean, it's the cycle of a new market and advertising in a new market, right? Like eventually in the beginning, maybe when things get regulated, I remember 6 years ago when things got regulated in a lot of the states, maybe a lot of people didn't know who all of the books were or what books were available. So it made sense, especially for the smaller books that weren't DraftKings and FanDuel, to advertise a lot, right? Or maybe like Caesars and MGM, brands that people would only know from going to Vegas or other gambling-centric cities, like Atlantic City or something. So those brands needed to get out there and let people know, but eventually just everybody knows what it is, what's available, or they have friends that know. And so when they get into it, the friends are going to tell them. So it kind of just naturally made sense to me. And I'd worked with some people in the industry who were more on the new player procurement side many years ago, before I was really doing what I'm doing now. And I remember them telling me back then that these companies were just bleeding an insane amount of money on advertising, and it was just going to have to stop. So that was probably 4 years ago, which was about I think was about what the peak was according to that article we were looking at earlier.
I think it was something crazy. Like DraftKings spent like $400 million in their first year just on Facebook ads.
Yeah,
so like wild. Through Meta, the numbers were out of control, not sustainable. Shane, obviously we've talked about this. How they're like adopting this Uber model, like pay whatever you have to acquire the customers, and then you have them afterwards because you won the market. And us sort of disagreeing that that's the way that sports betting works, but there definitely is that element to like get rid of these 90 other providers and then let's settle in on these 5 to 10 that are available. So yeah, I'm definitely not surprised that the marketing's down, both from the standpoint of people not maybe receiving it the same way they used to, like John saying, hey, they might have actually learned about a sports book, right? And then the second part being just the profitability of the books themselves is a major factor. And the effectiveness of your ad, it doesn't matter if you have the best ad in the world, your effectiveness is obviously going to go down over time as you've reached the same market over and over and over again. And I don't think they've had a problem reaching new people. I don't think there's an ad that flicks on today where someone's like, oh, what's that? They've kind of accomplished that side of things from a marketing standpoint. So that makes sense.
Yeah. I think too, when we think about the fact that, especially in the North American market, and particularly in the US, where it's dominated by DraftKings and FanDuel. I think Pace, we were reporting on it maybe a few weeks back or a couple months ago. That FanDuel and DraftKings own something like close to 80% of the market share now. So if they're if they've pushed a lot of the competitors out, then I think naturally you're going to see fewer advertisements. That kind of makes sense, I think, right?
Yeah. The other thing too is I'm not in the UK, but one of the things that I used to do pre-legalization, and I still think it is effective, but you look for various billboards and sponsorships and things like that. On the soccer team's jerseys and the dart players and the handball players and all the other sports that are there. I actually found quite a few reputable books doing that back in the day. And I think that was also effective marketing. So, with a lot of the things in the industry, you can kind of look over to the pond to see what they're doing. To maybe not, it's not going to be pound for pound the same, but to maybe see where things settle a little bit. And I don't think they're being inundated with TV ads over there.
Yeah. You mentioned something about people being aware and knowing about sportsbooks now, and everybody kind of knows what it is, and it's not new anymore in that sense. Well, check this out. This is a survey, and we'll get to who conducted it because I think that's really interesting. And John, I'm going to pick your brain about that in a moment. But first, let's just talk about the results. So there's a new survey out. 79% of Americans have placed or plan to place a sports bet. And that is within the year, I think it looked at. So it said they surveyed 750 respondents between the ages of 18 and 64, and more than half the respondents, 54%, saying they place bets a few times a year, with another 30% betting weekly during specific sports seasons. Obviously, we probably bet much more frequently than most, and a lot in our audience are probably thinking that they bet a lot more. But I was a bit surprised to hear that 80%, close to 80% of Americans either have placed a sports bet or plan to place a sports bet within the year. But John, why don't I turn it over to you, since you're our guy in the States? Is it that high? Because in Canada, I can tell you, I don't think it's anywhere near that number. I would say it's, probably maybe a third of Canadians might put themselves in that group. But even that, I think, might be high.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mathematically impossible because the state of California doesn't have regulated sports betting, and they've by popular vote have elected not to have it. So like the actual citizens in California have voted against it multiple times now. So that kind of gives you an indication of, California is a massive percentage of the population of the United States, and they're electing not to have gambling. So to me, that says that number is just basically impossible. It's always like, it's like political polls. Like who's getting polled, who's taking the survey? Has anyone ever met anybody who's ever been polled by one of those things? So I just question like maybe what that sample is. I mean, I think it's very high, especially, where I'm from in the South in the United States, people are obsessed with sports. People love basically every sport here, even baseball, they still care about. And so, at least every guy I know that's about in my age range, pretty much, I mean, can't say every, but I would say 90%, have definitely bet on sports or would plan to. But females in this area, probably not even 30%, 40% that I know of. So that number definitely seems quite high to me.
If you say 30 to 40% of women are put themselves in that category, planning to place a bet or have placed a bet within the year, I would say like that sounds extremely high to me. I know that we have a few women in the In Play Live community, but it's a very small number. I know just anecdotally in my own circles, there's very few women who are placing sports bets ever. Like maybe even in the last 10 years, they probably haven't. So when you say 30 to 40%, to me, that sounds really high. But also my last trips to the US, I noticed women talking about placing bets specifically on FanDuel. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe there are significantly more women in the States betting now.
Yeah, I think it's a recreational thing. It's something to do on, and I mean like have placed a bet right. Ever. So, the boyfriend, husband gets them to sign up for MGM on the Super Bowl because they get $100 free bet, right. and then they bet on it. And then, now I won my bet. Now I have $200. I'm going to bet $1 on these random games every other day because it's gambling. It's like buying a lottery ticket. So I'm going to bet some like 1,000 to 1 parlay. And then eventually I go to zero and I probably don't ever do it again. But that's kind of what I mean by that. As I would say a good percentage of the women I know, that's probably the situation that they've taken part in that.
Right. Yeah. That kind of makes sense to sort of in sort of that smaller kind of percentage. I also want to note that I've seen a significant rise in the number of women who want to be sports betting influencers on social media. There seems to be a ton of women that at least from the stuff that I'm following and seeing out there. And Pace, you're on socials quite a bit. Maybe you can attest to this or even refute it. But I'm seeing a ton more women sports bettors, or at least women with social media accounts who are either pretending to be sports bettors or perhaps bots that are posing as women as sports bettors and trying to sort of be sports betting influencers. But it just sort of seems to be growing. Well,
if there is an increase in female bettors, that's all good and well. But I mean, like this survey, who did this survey, Shane?
Okay. Yeah. So we want to talk about who did the survey.
Want to comment on it. So,
okay. It's actually, so this is another aspect of it. And John, I'll come back to you, but we'll let Pace finish his thought. This is a tax software provider called Tax Act that did this survey. And it they're doing it to raise awareness about what your responsibilities are when it comes to sports betting and filing your taxes. Yeah. But Pace, go ahead first.
So people get polled on whether they've made a bet or whether they're planning on making a bet this year, and they got back 79%. Well, it's like, of what range there? Because you said 18 to 64, right?
Yeah.
So 3 of the years that they surveyed aren't legally eligible to gamble, and you still got to 79%.
Right. Well, we know a lot of young people are gambling whether they're allowed to or not.
Right. So if the males said 100% of them gamble, all the males were like, yes. I think you couldn't get to 79% with just the women that you should have surveyed. So I think this one's a little bit, I think there's some bias in this survey. That's what I would say. Yeah. What, like 6.5%, 3, how many years is that? It's like 46 years, and three of those years. So it's like 6.5%, 7% of the people that were surveyed aren't even legal gambling age. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Fair enough. One of, and I mean, yeah, you got to look at who's conducting it and why. One of the things that this tax act, the software provider here found, though, is that only 18% of respondents knew that all their winnings must be reported to the IRS. Just 25% correctly identified that sports betting winnings are even taxable income. John, and I'm just sort of asking kind of, generally here, I don't want you to name names or anything like that, but do you find that people in your circle, those who are perhaps gambling more recreationally, know that they're supposed to be reporting this to the IRS?
Nobody has any idea. And I always tell everybody in my group, I'm not a tax expert. They should consult a tax expert before they do anything with their taxes relating to anything, not just sports betting or gambling of any kind. But
that disclaimer applies to the show as well for anyone out there listening.
But it's like how many people go to a casino and gamble and either win or lose and report any of that. And know that they should, or know that they could claim a loss, in gambling. It's, or other, there's so many other things too. Like when you join a pool for some type, at work, and you're putting in money for the Masters or something, like there's all these different things that, like, I just encourage people to go read about this or ask a tax expert about it, because you probably actually, if you're like most people and you've lost money in these things over time, you've probably not taken advantage of, your ability to write some stuff off. So, but no, most people have no idea that gambling in general is taxed or could be a write-off. So, yeah.
Wow. I think the point John made there was, or could be a write-off. That's the real one.
Yeah.
Right. So when you play slots in Vegas, probably anywhere in the US, right? But like, I don't know what the amount is. It's like $1,200. They don't just pay your account. It's called a hand pay, and they have to, a representative actually from the casino actually comes and pays you by hand. But before they do, they take 30% off the top right away in tax owed. So it's actually kind of detrimental to hit a $1,200 payout on a slot machine, because now you got to deal with, someone that's going to come pull the tax right off the top. Doesn't matter how much you're down that day. Off comes that 30%. So it's kind of like the gift card concept. If you guys know why Costco sells gift cards to prominent places in your area for $80 for the $100, right? So 20% discount. They do it because approximately like 35% of people never claim their gift cards. So they know net, the restaurants or companies that sell to Costco, they know that net of their sale to Costco, they will get that money back separately of their individual profit margins, and encouraging people to come in on unclaimed gift cards, right? So it's the same concept with this. Like if you're in Vegas and someone gives you a hand pay and they take 30% off the top, you have to now claim your losses in order to be able to get, that money back. So a lot of this stuff is, the human element of filing the paperwork and those types of things become a bit of a hurdle that lead to additional revenue for, in the case of the gift cards, whomever's selling them. And then obviously in this case, the IRS, where they take the money off the top, knowing that people won't go and file. But that's to John's point. It's that people have capital losses or betting losses that they can, like John said, go write some stuff off. And I'm pretty sure that isn't necessarily happening. Yeah. Unfortunately, in our world, we do make money from betting. So it's the other way around, right? These guys got to deal with a little bit of a headache and paying the government. So you got to pay the sports books, you got to beat the VIG, and then you got to pay your taxes. It's not an easy situation. Yeah.
John, without giving too much away here, or, again, John's not a tax professional. None of us here are tax professionals, but how much it is that time of year, tax time. How difficult is it, John, as a sports bettor to do your taxes? As a winning bettor?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that difficult. I mean, it's a little more complicated than if you're just getting money taken out on a W-2 as a salaried employee at a company or something, right? But again, like I said, I use the CPA. I think, if you I look at it like it saves me money. He helps me figure that stuff out, right? It costs money to go that route, but I think I'm saving money in the long haul doing it. And I'm doing everything that I know I'm doing it the right way, because I think everybody should do it the right way. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand, even if you go through CPA and you have other people that are the experts, I think it's as important, even if you're just a recreational gambler, but you do it often or you do it for a lot of money. I think you just think it's really important to understand how all that works. Like what, and Pace is talking about the hand pay and then withholding, like what triggers a W2G form, like it's a certain amount of winning, like a ratio of winning based on the amount that you put into how much you got back. Right. And it's just for that one spin. Right. So like, it's important to understand that. It's also important to understand if you're in the United States, state by state taxes. So if you gamble in certain states, sometimes they'll withhold money if you win, or you might owe them that state money for having won there, even if they didn't withhold it. Like, so it's just important to understand state income tax laws if you spend time gambling there as well. Now, obviously, Nevada, Vegas, where most people gamble, no state income tax. You don't have to worry about that. But there are other states where you do have state income tax. You might be in that state gambling. So it's just important to understand all of that stuff, at least at a high level.
Yeah. Well, great advice for everybody tuning in to our show from the U.S. As you sort of go into this season here. Know what your responsibilities are, and if you need to consult a tax professional, don't just rely on us.
Don't just go to Grok either or Chat GPT and think that they're going to give you the absolute correct information either on something as important as this. Yeah. It's not worth it.
Great advice there. Okay, well, if we are to believe the results of that survey, that's something like 80% of Americans, and I obviously that would be outside of the states that are not legalized. So I'm sure they weren't surveying people in California or Texas, etc. But if we are to believe it, 80%, that's a significant number. There's an article out in The Athletic, and I'll just share that with our audience here. Headline: NBA players sound off on league's gambling partnership and their impact. All right. So what are these NBA players saying? Well, I will scroll down here and give you a look at the graphic, because I think this sort of, gives you a sense of what, generally speaking, these NBA players are feeling. So here it is. Are the NBA's gambling partnerships good or bad for the league, and why? And we have 150 people who responded. These are all anonymous, but all current players in the league. And you can see here, 46% coming in saying it's bad, 34% saying good, 12% kind of in the middle, good and bad, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and 8% undecided. So kind of, maybe surprising, maybe not surprising, given some of the stuff that we've heard around the league and heard from people. But why don't I give you a few of the quotes here? And again, all of these are anonymous. We don't know who the players are, but still 150 of them responding. So it gives you a sense generally of what the players are thinking. But here are some of the quotes from the bad side. Okay, these are people who fall into that 46%. Okay. First quote: it blurs the line between intentions and purity of the game. It's a little predatory the way they push it. You want to encourage gambling responsibly and tell gamblers, oh my God, look at all this money you can make, when reality, the only reason why these things exist is because they make tons of money. Why do you think they can spend that much money on advertising? They're taking your money and throwing it back in your face. And then the same person also saying, I get 10 messages, DMs a game saying, fuck you, I'm going to fuck up your family. I mean, and we've heard about these instances and stories, both in the professional level and the college level. Here's another one from somebody on the no side. The gambling partnerships are horrible for the league because you guys are selling your soul for the worst type of people in your fan base. Ouch. That kind of hurts personally there. I love the NBA. They don't see us as human beings anymore, which again, they never did. That's a little bit intense there as well. All right, here's one more from the bad side. It's not great when you're banning players, understandably, for gambling, and then you're promoting it. So this is sort of getting into the Jonte Porter sort of situation here. It'd be like telling us not to do cocaine and then giving the players cocaine in the locker room. All right. Okay, that's the bad side. I'll just give the other side of it very quickly before we sort of discuss. But the good side, here are what people are saying. I think it's just another opportunity to make money. This is a business. It's great. Gambling is great for the league. More money, more eyes, more fan engagement. I think they're good. It's more money. So on the good side, it's, hey, they're bringing in the dollars. They're getting eyeballs on us. It's got to be good for us. And on the no side, well, you heard a whole bunch of reasons there. One, let's start off with, did we think that NBA players would be this opposed to the partnerships? 46% falling in that bad category. And you can tell the ones who are responding have some very strong feelings towards it.
Oh, geez, it's tough because you'd want to hear from some of the players directly, almost, where you go, okay, this is Kevin Durant, and he's telling us why he thinks this is bad for the league and how it's infected him personally or whatever, right? It's 150 votes cast. Are we getting the backup bench players casting votes, or are LeBron, Curry, and KD out there, speaking on it, right? But I mean, like, at the end of the day, it is good for the league from the standpoint of viewership. I don't think you can debate that. If you have money on the game or the ability to bet on the game, you're way more likely to tune in. So from that standpoint, it's positive. That's kind of what I would say. Wouldn't really have an argument. But the thing is obviously I'm going to sit here and promote the benefits of why betting on sports can be a positive thing, but we are in a minority in a big way. And I'm not referencing that we are a minority because we represent the 34%. We represent maybe the 1% of people that actually turn a profit over the long term. So, but I think this is different than maybe a political vote, right? Where it's so easy to see why people would think that the other side is bad. I can totally sympathize with that side of the discussion and definitely agree with a lot of the points.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not really surprised by a lot of those quotes in there, the sentiments. I do think that the dehumanization of strangers and specifically famous strangers is more of a broader societal trend than as anything specifically related to sports in general, and especially gambling. Like maybe the gambling aspect and somebody losing their parlay because somebody missed a shot is underscoring that trend in society. But I think in broader society, people are just typically they dehumanize strangers more. It's just I think we view so much of our interaction with others is through a digital device, like we're doing this right now, and like how people will consume this, right? We less and less interact with people face to face or forced to, right? So I think that's just a broader thing, and they're kind of just getting into that here in that article under the lens of sports betting. And I'm not surprised that all the good stuff is just related to the money, because the players and their union knows that the revenue coming in is half theirs. So why would they be opposed to that when it's look how much these contracts have ballooned in the last decade, right? So it just seems kind of obvious to me. I mean, I think the conversation around the irony or the hypocrisy of not being able to gamble while your league promotes it is, I mean, you're not the only industry where that's true. People can't work for a regulatory board in the government and gamble on the games. People can't. There are people who can't be in certain aspects of media coverage of sports and gamble on that particular sport, right? People who vote on awards for the league can't gamble on those awards. right? Like they can't bet on those specific markets. So there's a lot of reasons why like you might not be able to do that. And it's not just the players that are targeted by not being able to gamble on just their own league. So
yeah,
I kind of don't really sympathize too much with that.
Yeah, the cocaine guy just really wants to gamble.
Yeah, he wants to do coke and gamble. It seems
he probably is gambling. He probably is gambling. Let's be honest.
He's like, what
right?
the hell, man? You want to promote these guys, but I can't do it myself. He's just FOMOing big time. We know the type.
Yeah. So I hear that all the time, and I kind of, the more I've heard it over the last 5 years, I just start kind of like rolling my eyes. Like, I'm sorry. You make tens of millions of dollars a year and you're not allowed to play same game parlays on your own league. Like, what a horrible life. What a terrible trade-off, you know?
Yeah.
Sorry. Play the world's smallest violin, please.
Yeah. Just to give you a sense of how many sort of respondents we had here, 150. I think there's something like 500 players in the league at any kind of given time on an active roster. And I think that may include the G League as well. Just sort of doing a quick search there. So, we're talking maybe about 25% of the league responding to this, somewhere in that range. So yeah, it is a question of who is it exactly, what level of players, what caliber of players are we talking about here? But still pretty sort of, I didn't think it was that many that felt this negatively about it. We've heard some people come out and say it, but I was a bit surprised by that. Anyway, that's probably enough of this. I think it's maybe time to get to the stuff that a lot of you out there want to hear more about, which is, hey, should we be looking at when it comes to betting on sports coming up over the next week or so? John, you joined us last week to talk NBA, and we did some looking ahead and some forecasting of the playoffs. How would you say it's been going so far? I've really enjoyed personally that Clippers Nuggets series is one to watch. I think that is the series right now that I'm just dialed right into.
Yeah. Those have been some great games. I think that Warriors Rockets series is going to be a tough one. I think the Warriors had they just got to lead those too big to come back from. Kind of, and Houston really did a good job to cut it all the way back down to I think 4 or 5 there at the end. But looked like a young team trying to figure out how to win a playoff game. And so I think that one's actually going to be kind of a grinder. Then we've got some like real just trash and like that Thunder Grizzlies series. I think that Celtics Magic series is probably a joke. That Cavs Heat series. I think maybe Miami can take a game and maybe they can make some games close, but I think the talent gap there between those two squads is really significant.
There's also so much incentive for a team that is so superior that has their eye, maybe a little further than the first round to get that series done, to get some rest and to be ready for that next opponent.
Yeah.
Especially when you're looking at the East where you go, okay, we know we probably have to play the Cavs, or we know we probably have to play the Celtics, whichever the team you are. And you go, not only do we have to play them, but we might go to game 7 and these guys are sitting there rested, waiting for us. And maybe also knowing it is us. Right, like maybe it's a game 6, maybe it's a game 7, and the way these leagues work too is if you're ready to go, you might start round 2 before round 1 has concluded. So they'll literally be waiting for you and ready, and they're at home, and you got to go travel to them. So it definitely is an advantage to have those 1 and 2 spots and to get through those series quickly, especially in the East where you're playing a team that's below 500, which is just insane.
Yeah.
That OKC series, I think, is absolutely one of those. I could see OKC just, wrapping this up really fast, 4-0 in the series, especially after that first game. I'm starting to wonder if we might even see like a college-esque spread line pregame on those games between OKC and Memphis. We start getting up into like, a minus 15.
I think it's what it is. It's 14 and a half, I think, for game 2. Exactly. I mean, when people hear this, that game will have already been played, I think, but I do believe it's 14 and a half right now, Tuesday, midday.
Well, this is one of the things that's just so beautiful about playoff basketball. And it just doesn't exist enough in the regular season. And it's that you don't get the Celtics coming out a little, they might come out a little slow, but you don't get them intentionally coming out slow. You get them going, we are winning game one. We are putting our best foot forward for 4 quarters straight. We're playing a complete game of basketball. And you just so infrequently see that in the regular season. And as a result of that, what you typically get is the better team winning the series. So when we're recording this, we've seen all the game ones, right? We may see some significant adjustments from the Lakers where they do make it a series. But at the same time, if the Wolves just run those guys over, they just simply were the better team and came out and played better than them in the series. But that's one that I could also see going, potentially 6-7 games for sure. If the Warriors come out and beat the Rockets in game 2, same idea, right? So the adjustments are going to be made, the best foot's going to be put forward, and the intensity level is so high. And that's why obviously you see these games coming in where you're like, holy shit, the live total's at 179. It's because it's freaking hard to get out there and score points.
Yeah. I think what I'm most interested in for the immediate games in front of us are the game 2 for the Warriors and the Wolves. You stole game 1 on the road. How it can be so easy to have a mindset of we got what we came for, and then you get blown out by 30 in game 2, and you give momentum back to that team that feels like they found something now, And the Warriors, I'd be very shocked if that's the result, but it would not surprise me at all if the Wolves came out with like a kind of just a lackadaisical approach to that game, just given like their youth and everything on that team, and just kind of the way of some of those guys carry themselves in that squad. And I think like they really need to kind of buckle down and say, we can take 2 games here and we need to, not give them anything. So I'm really looking for that.
We got to talk about these Pistons.
Oh, Cade's looking great, eh?
They should be 2-0. Like they gave up a 21-0 run. Yeah. They gave it up again last game. That's why I took their money line, because I was like, geez, this is a big number. And they did tie it back up. It got to 94-94. Yeah. But the Pistons could easily be 2-0, where they stole 2 in New York. I think there's a really good chance that they could win this series. And when you look at some of these series matchups, like before Denver lost game 2, they were normal juice to win the series. They were like -110 to win the series. So the Clippers are getting a lot of money, a lot of hype, right? Take a look at some of these series prices in the middle of the series, especially the ones that are going to be like the 1-1s, 2-2s, where you've watched the games and you go, okay, this team is actually the better team. So with the Knicks series specifically, the Knicks have been outplayed in, without question, 6 of the 8 quarters. Like without question, 6 of the 8 quarters.
Yeah, maybe even 7.
And maybe like if you're like UFC style scoring this thing, the Knicks or the Pistons are the better team. I want to see how the Pistons look at home in this series, and there's going to be value on them for the entirety of the series in the games themselves, and to actually win the series. You might even be able to get +1.5 in the series right now. I don't know. I haven't looked, but that one's really, really interesting because they seem to have the Knicks number for the majority of the game. It's just a matter of, how, John, you're like, I watched the Rockets, this young team trying to figure out how to win a playoff game. Well, there's a little bit of that inexperience there over on the Pistons where they have to figure out how to close these games out. And if they can do that, they're going to win the series.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I talked for the last couple of weeks leading up on streams while we've been watching the games, betting the games like the regular season. Just I've said several times, like it's not going to be easy for the Knicks, like in that first series against the Pistons. They're tough. They're a really tough team, and they match up well, and they outsize them in a lot of positions, which I don't think the Knicks are kind of used to. But Brunson's a real big liability in that series on the defensive end. So.
Yeah. They were -400 before the series started. The Knicks were to win the series. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think the point of value on the Pistons throughout the series, game by game, if you want to look at quarter by quarter, even, I think it'll be there the whole way pace. I think that's a really sort of great piece of actionable advice for everybody out there listening.
Totally. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. We got to talk puck. because John, we didn't talk any puck last week. We're into the series and into the playoffs, pretty heavy now. We've got to talk a little bit about it. And Pace, I know that you love playoff puck. Maybe more than John and I. Although John, I know you like it a lot too. And I gotta say, my hockey fanship has certainly grown over the last few years, especially after joining IPL. I wasn't a huge hockey guy before, but I can tell you I'm tuning in for a lot of these games now and enjoying it and staying up late to watch, like, the Kings almost blow a big lead against the Oilers, and watching that stuff in, which took me to past 1 a.m. Eastern last night. And I think I was checking the schedule. We're recording this on Tuesday here. I was looking at the schedule for tonight. There's a game starting at 11 p.m. Eastern. And I'm sitting here going like, holy shit, how am I going to stay up for this thing? But before, I would never even ask myself, how am I going to stay up? I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And now I'm thinking, oh, geez, how am I going to plan this? I'm going to take a nap at some point tonight, and then wake up for the tail end of the game or something like that. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm bringing up the playoff picture here for everybody out there that's watching us. Most of the series, or all of them, I think, have one game under the belt so far. No, Tampa Bay and Florida
still hasn't played.
Yeah, we're still waiting for them, and the Jets have already won 2 games against the Blues. But John, what are you watching for? What series in particular are you paying close attention to? Where are you expecting to find the most value?
It's kind of hard with hockey for me and I'm kind of like you, Shane. Like, I was obviously been a casual hockey fan for most of my life, but I haven't really gotten into it until the last few years, like real deep. What I do find, and I've been kind of working on modeling some pregame hockey and trying to, do some predictions on winners. And so what I've gone back and done is, like, you should look at the model perform over the last few years. And one thing that I've really noticed is that in the playoffs, it actually seems, unlike other sports like basketball and football, the variability on a night-to-night basis actually seems to go up in the playoffs. And I think the reason for that is how fewer scoring opportunities there are and how fewer shots on goal there tend to be in playoff games. Like, looking at like a 25 to 30% reduction on average in shots on goal in games in the playoffs. And so it's really harder to get a 2 or 3 goal lead when you simply just aren't getting as many shots on the net. And so, when you have these 1 goal games all the way down to the wire, as we've seen a couple of times already in the playoffs, like, a 1 goal lead is not safe even to the last second of the game, right? And so the variability just on a night-to-night basis is really high. And I actually think it's not really priced that way, or to some extent it is, depending on the matchup. But you don't see the massive favorites in the playoffs. Like, I'm just looking at the games tonight, right, or the next game in the series, and it's just kind of a lot of minus 120, minus 140, like that kind of stuff. So they kind of know that there's more coin flips. So I think there's value to be found on any team in any game, because typically you don't get these just massive favorites where you get a normal juice puck line or something like that in the playoffs, because the totals are so low. So that's kind of what's interesting to me, is like, you don't even really have to find underdogs, really. You can just find the team that's playing well and doing really well in that series, and finding that goalie that's standing on his head night after night. So,
yeah, I think a really good indicator in the NHL playoffs of success is going to be not on the scoreboard, but with your eyes.
Yeah.
So you can look at the stats, like the shots on goal, obviously, and time of possession, and a few different things. But when you watch a hockey game, you can tell when a game is really evenly distributed in chances and shots, and it's back and forth. And if you see consistently in the NHL where that isn't necessarily the case, but the team's losing the series, because in hockey that happens, right? They drop a game and you're like, they got outplayed. They didn't play as well as the score indicated. Typically the team that played them better in that game actually goes on to win the series. So keep an eye on that, especially because if you have a game where the team went up 1-0, they almost can't, like kind of what John was alluding to. They almost feel like they got their job done to an extent. And they're riding high off that win. Meanwhile, the team that just outplayed them and lost, they're even hungrier for the next game. Right. So it's really hard not to upset a favorite, but it's really hard to lose a best of 7 series when you outplayed your opponent. And typically the only way that happens is if you have the absolute best goaltender in the league. And aside from that, it usually comes through where the team that outplayed their opponent does go on to win. So I love round 1 of the playoffs, both NBA and NHL, because I think there's some really good series parlay opportunities. We have one in hockey right now that's off to a really good start. But the team that I'm actually worried about there is the Leafs. So I called the Leafs to win the series on the parlay. They got outplayed in game 1. And they don't have the best playoff history, but at the same time, I think that they know that, and that makes them hungrier, and they still got outplayed. And I think the player with the most grit, the most heart, the most intensity is on Ottawa. And that can be the ringleader for the entire locker room to get out on the ice, play harder, play more physical. We see much more physical hockey in the playoffs, knowing that you can wear down your opponent in that fashion in a best of 7 series. So I'm not saying Ottawa is going to win this thing, because I actually hope the Leafs do from the bet I made, but coming out 1-0 in game 1 could come back to bite Toronto in this series.
That the parlay there, Pace, that you called, I was a little late seeing it, so I was like, I don't think I can get this full series thing. But what I did was I parlayed game 1s for those same teams, and that came through. That was pretty that was a great hit. So thanks for that.
And the same would have happened for the NBA. Same would have happened for the NBA playoff series the NBA that I called. And not only that, I think they all covered the spread too. So that it's kind of what I was just speaking to about. You're playing at the highest level. You really do want to come out and win. And there's a reason why I didn't take the Caps, and there's a reason why I didn't take the Avalanche. And it's not to say those two won't win the series, but there's a reason why I didn't take the Oilers. The Oilers were favorites going into the road in their series against the Kings, but they were underdogs in game 1, which I always find bizarre. It's like you're handicapping the game so that the Kings are favored at home. The Kings get they're guaranteed 4 home games if it goes to 7, and Edmonton's the favorite to win the series. Not by much, obviously, but and I understand why Edmonton's favored to win the series, but then it's surprising that the Kings are favored to win game 1 so heavily. They were minus 150 in game 1. But yeah, it looks like that Kings-Oilers series. Like, I can't imagine the Oilers not winning some games there. So that one should go pretty deep, because the Kings did outplay the Oilers last night.
But that came down to the wire.
Yeah,
that was. Yeah. I thought the Oilers were gonna complete the comeback there.
Well, they did.
Well, they did. Yeah, they almost did.
They did.
They didn't quite finish them off. You mentioned the Senators. Who's that player that you were referring to? That you think?
Come on.
You're talking to a casual here, Pace. Come on.
Okay. The intensity of both Tkachuk brothers are second to none in the league. Yeah. And I think Brady Tkachuk is like, he's scary. Like, he's downright scary. I would be terrified to be on the ice with that man. He's got a lot of heart. He's got a lot of physicality. He has unrelenting intensity. And you saw it in the Four Nations. I mean, he was a force. He really wanted to win. I was happy that he didn't, but he really wanted to win. And yeah, he can carry that team. He can really carry that team and bring the energy in that locker room up to a level that, could be a problem for the Leafs. Yeah.
John, what are you looking at here in terms of, teams to advance? Any sort of, value on some of these dogs that maybe Pace avoided with his parlay?
Well, it's funny you brought up the Senders, because as soon as he started talking about teams that outplayed a team that and lost the game, that's immediately what I thought of. Because like I'm fortunately in the playoffs, all these games are actually on TV, so I can watch them instead of having to try to pull up ESPN Plus on a million different screens and watch 2 minutes delayed and buffer over and over again. So I've actually watched probably, I would say 90% of all the games so far. And yeah, I mean, I thought Ottawa it didn't really look close to me. I thought they looked a lot better. It's just one of those games where the puck finds back of the net for Toronto on a short number of shots there. As far as like other underdogs go, I mean, like, yeah, if the Kings are slide underdogs, I thought again that they really outplayed them in the first game. I think the going into that Caps Habs series, I really thought like Montreal's played really good hockey the last few months, and obviously Washington's really good, but they're a team that I was watching just to see how they looked in this series, just because I think we'd kind of taken a lot of advantage of how they were under handicapped the last couple of months in a lot of their regular season games. They were playing like one of the best teams in the league. So I thought that first game they played, it felt pretty even. I mean, obviously they went to overtime, so that would indicate that that's true. But I didn't see much of a difference between those two teams, if I'm being honest, in that one game. So that's definitely a series I'm going to keep my eye on.
Yeah, and the other thing I think we saw in that game, and you could make the same argument for the Oilers, but I think there's a little bit of a different sort of feel to it. I hate that word sometimes, but it did feel a little bit different. Washington outplayed Montreal for a couple of periods slightly, and Montreal looked unbelievable in that third period. And obviously there's a massive change in hockey when you're up 2 goals in how you play. But at the same time, Montreal did another team that was down 2 that tied it up. So I could really see them coming out and playing the way they played the third period for the rest of the series, because they've had that momentum behind them, and they're playing the 1 seed, right? So the first in the division was Washington. They weren't the 1. The Jets are the 1 seed. But I think they know they're underdogs, and I think they're going to come out with some pretty. Montreal should win a couple games. That's what I'll say. I don't know that they can win the series, but I could definitely see that going 6 or 7.
I wonder how much of Washington's late season sort of success there was driven by that OV record chase. I don't know. I mean, but I just imagine that dominated so many headlines. Everything around that team was sort of, focused on OV chasing that record and then breaking the record. I don't know. I mean, I wonder how that sort of loss of drive and momentum maybe affect them in this series.
Well, how does playing, 90 games in a season affect someone who's like 40 years old? I mean, I don't, like, again, as somebody who's only followed hockey, like I'm used to all these narratives in basketball, right? Of like, these are long, grueling seasons when guys get in their upper 30s, like it's just hard to stay healthy and that sort of thing. I mean, I know, like, I'm sure that it hits him a little harder than it did 15 years ago to go 80 plus games into the season. So I don't know how much that impacts, him specifically or other older players, but something to keep an eye on.
He's definitely the kind of player that has a few beers after the game,
Oh, yeah, that's pretty obvious.
he doesn't like go hit, like Kobe would be like at the free throw line after the game was over, after they won, because he missed one free throw,
right.
And like be mad, he'd shoot 500 free throws. Ovi's firing back a few beers and missing the morning skate, right? So, and he's still like, you caught the overtime winner. It's unbelievable. It really is.
Right.
It really is. He's an anomaly for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, anything else on the rink, on the ice that you guys want to touch on before we sign off for the week?
Yeah, I would just say, like, this is just such a great time of year with playoffs and motivations being, not in question and very clear, and teams willing to do things differently that they didn't do in the regular season. Teams with leads in the NBA, the way they handle the basketball, teams down in the NBA and how they try to push to get back in a game. And then, of course, in the NHL, we've just seen 2 2-goal games that went to overtime, which we did see in the regular season this year at a little bit of a higher clip than we had previously, but just really shows like the motivations are there, and there isn't sort of, hey, we're down 2, we got to throw in the towel, or hey, we're down 3, we got to throw in the towel. They're playing to win out there, and there's opportunities to capitalize from a betting standpoint. So have fun, bet responsibly, and hopefully there's a couple things you could take away, especially with the serious stuff where you go, hey, there might be some value out there that I'm going to go pick off the board.
Yeah, and a great time of year to place a $10 wager on Pinnacle and enter the next contest. We gave away $1,000 USD. Put $1,000 USD in someone's.
We didn't.
What's that?
We didn't.
We didn't. What do you mean we didn't? What happened?
Do you remember what I said when we gave it away?
Wait, we gave away. We were supposed to give away $1,000 USD. It did not get claimed. Is this what you're telling me?
Yeah, I feel bad. Like, do we tell the guy? I don't know. You guys let us know what you want us to do.
Wow.
Do we tell the guy?
He
we
never
said you had to listen to the episode.
And he never claimed it.
Never claimed it.
That's terrible. Okay, well, then does that mean that
Look at John laughing. I don't know. What do we do, Shane? Do we give him until next week?
I don't know. Maybe we give him a bit of a buffer. Sure, right?
We've given him a buffer. This is a bonus buffer.
This is a bonus buffer. You're right, because that was 2 weeks ago that I think.
Yeah, and I think we said he had a week or he had 2 weeks or something. We said something. The time is up.
All right. Well, I mean, maybe we give him one more week, like really sort of extra generous bonus buffer. The one more week. If he doesn't claim it, I think you got to roll that 1,000.
Oh, we'll roll it. We'll roll it for sure. So people are not. I think people know who he is. And they haven't gone and told him because they're like, oh, let's roll that shit.
Let's roll it.
and then we can all message him. We can all message him when after next week gets released and be like, dude,
you missed out.
You won and lost the Pinnacle contest, which would I don't know, you never know what that money means to someone. That might not be funny.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Depending on what that person's bankroll is. I mean,
but at the same time, he didn't check to see if he won. So I don't know.
Okay. Well,
open to people in the comments, on YouTube, on the YouTube comments, to let us know what they think we should do.
Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think we should do. Maybe you want to reach out. Maybe you know who he is and you want to reach out to him. Let him know. That's on you. It's up to you. If you don't want to, we'll end up rolling it into the next one, and it would be $2,000 USD for the next quarter. But all you have to do is make a $10 wager on Pinnacle. Take a screenshot of it, minimum $10. If you want to bet more than that, by all means, go and place more than that. And then send it over to us. Send it to Raj at In Play Live. And you'll be entered into the contest. That giveaway would be at the end of this second quarter, April, May, June, end of June, beginning of July, somewhere around there. We'll give away another prize. It could be $2,000 USD, could be $1,000 USD. All depends on, I'm pretty sure his name's Nick, the guy who won it. All depends on whether Nick claims his prize or not. So if you know Nick, you can either be a nice friend and let him know, or you can hang on to that info until next week's episode, and then we'll sort of rip that Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, a lot of fun as always. John, thanks for joining us this week. Always great to have you in. And who knows, maybe we'll have you back again sometime soon. We'll see. All right, guys. Till next week. Keep beating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.